Hey, what's up, y'all? This is another permaculture Q&A. If you have a permaculture question that you need answered, leave it down below in the comment section with the hashtag permaculture Q&A at the beginning of it, and I will answer it on a video. The hashtag at the beginning makes it, easier for me to spot whenever I'm going through the comment section. So let's get started. This one is from John St. Jean, or Jean, maybe. What are your thoughts on electroculture collecting the ether energy in the air and creating a magnetic field? Me personally, I see a huge difference, twice the production in my garden, even to the point I'm seeing difference with the chemtrails in the surrounding of my house. Please look into this. I'm experimenting with it in my compost. I'm seeing a difference so far. Composting even faster, but I would love for you and your dad to look into this. So as far as the electroculture goes, we're going to go into the garden over here because I do have two test beds for the electroculture. Or no, one test bed and then one control where I both planted the same number of potatoes and the same varieties of potatoes, even coming from the same store in the same bag, basically. These two beds right here. Planted 2 potatoes. Now it's still very, very early, so I don't necessarily have any results just yet. If you're wondering what that piece of cardboard is in the background, I have a watermelon resting on it. I just noticed it in the camera. But I don't know what to think of the electroculture yet. The only opinion that I have of the electroculture is what I've observed through, let's say, YouTube and stuff. And here's one thing that I've noticed from the people that talk about electroculture on YouTube, is that a lot of them don't have, or the people that I've listened to, don't have an understanding of soil biology and the actual function of some of these microbes and the different microbes in the soil. It seems like the ones that do have an understanding of the soil food web have noticed like inconsistent results with the electroculture, and the warrior in or Viking in the garden, or was it Garden Like a Viking, I think? He did a video where it was super inconsistent results on whether or not electroculture worked. And he noticed that his biggest benefits on the plants were the ones that were very close to a full, complete soil food web. And I think I just don't know. That's one of those things that has stuck out to me, is that the ones that have gone on and on and on about electroculture are also coming from a very conventional gardening method or a very conventional gardening system. And it might be better than a conventional gardening system. In fact, I'm pretty sure it might be. And that's where they're seeing their benefits from. I don't know, and I'm not trying to talk down to anybody who's using electroculture or anything like that. It's just something that I've noticed within YouTube, is that whenever I'm researching this or whenever I'm finding out more information about electroculture, the people talking about it don't necessarily have an understanding of the potential of compost or soil food web systems. So there's that. As far as the chemtrails go, I live in Texas right now, and if there's something that can, knock out some of these chemtrails above, my property or so, then that would be freaking awesome. I heard orgonite has a effect on chemtrails. But since installing those antennas, I haven't noticed an effect either. Also, this is a very small property. It's like 5 acres, so it's not like if you're coming from, sorry, I got to move this hose over to the next part. It's like if you have like 100 acres or 200 acres, then you might be able to notice the difference in the electroculture having an effect on your chemtrails. But this being such a small property, I don't know that it's going to have much of an effect. Also, I would love to test out the second part of your statement or your question, was using it in the composting systems. I would love to test out these electroculture. If it makes compost even better, and if it supercharges the organisms in the way some people claim it does, then I would love to incorporate this into one of my compost cages or one of my compost systems and see how well it does. See, now that is something that we can empirically test. I can make 2 compost cages, and I'll do this after the potato test. If it works with the potato test, then we'll try it. If it doesn't work with the potato test, then we won't bother with it. But that's something I can empirically test, is the 2 different compost cages. Same exact ingredients. One is just made like a hot composting method. It's just made normal. The other one can have electroculture incorporated within it. And then I can test it underneath the microscope and see if there's actually a benefit to composting with electroculture or not composting with electroculture. So that's my thought on it. I'm skeptical of it right now. We're testing it. We're going to find out some answers, And hopefully that helps. Thank you so much. Next question is from K Martin 277. Hey William, I'm seeing several trees on my property that are getting covered in dodder, what seems to be overnight. We found some a few weeks ago on some persimmon and oak trees on another part of the property and just cut them down and burned them. Is there any way to get rid of it without cutting the trees down? It seems to prefer my live oaks and avoids the cedars. Trying to avoid it taking over the 20-acre property or having to clear too many trees. Thanks for the awesome content. Alrighty, so you are in luck because my homeboy Link and Olm, they're awesome people. I hope they start a YouTube channel soon and document their homesteading progress. But they are awesome people, and Link actually, I did a consultation for him a while back, and Link actually sent me a question saying, hey, what is this growing on my tomatoes? We later found out it was dodder, basically. And he's like, how do I get it off my plants? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. Because apparently if you cut it at the base, it's a very parasitic relationship with whatever it's attached to. So just because you cut it off at the base doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna die, because it can just thrive off what it's getting from its host plant. So he discovered that if you, shout out to Link Wayne, by the way, also check out his YouTube channel. He has awesome music over there. Link Wayne, L-I-N-C Wayne. Check him out. Anyway, he discovered that if you cut it off at the base and then you put that in, like the base of it in like a bucket or a bag of white vinegar, then it'll kill the plant, and then you just have to go through and kind of pull it off the plant. But it'll kill the dodder and will leave your tree, or in his case, tomatoes, unaffected. So hopefully that helps. That is perfect timing on your end. This next one is from Jade Morgan 4763. How many willow and mulberry fodder trees would you recommend for a rabbit trio on a half-acre suburban homestead in Metro Atlanta Zone 8A? What else would you recommend? I have plenty of comfrey. Thanks for all your time, energy, effort, and wisdom you care to share with the strangers like me. I love all you and Permaculture's Farm too. Much love. Thank you so much. And that is actually, so if you have a trio of rabbits, they're gonna need more than just like fodder trees. Let's say you have, like a good start, I would say, is maybe 2 or 3 of each one of those trees that you had mentioned. But also don't discount the trees that are just naturally occurring around you, that are just naturally growing around you. Chances are a lot of those leaves are gonna be edible to your rabbits. For example, your black locust, you could use your oak leaves, you could use any number of trees that are gonna be around you, you could use. But also don't forget some of the other varieties that you could grow maybe in your garden. Like rabbits tend to need sorghum, or not sorghum, but millet. And one of the ways you could grow your own millet is by growing sorghum and just feed them like the seed heads of the sorghum after it's, you know, grown, harvested and dried. You could just feed them each like a seed head per day. Also, they can eat a lot of the weeds from your garden. Like whenever I was at Jeff Lawton's Zaytuna Farm, one of the things we did, one of the chores was after you got done, because every morning everybody would go down to main crop and help out that system because it was the most laborious system and that's where they needed the most help from. It wasn't the animal systems, it was the main crop system. Anyways, that's a side note. But one of the things that we would do when we were taking care of the rabbits is whatever, you know, weeds we had in the garden, we just fed it to the rabbits. Made sure that there weren't any nightshades or anything like that, just fed it to the rabbits. Another one you could grow is this mimosa. It's very fast growing, and when you cut it down, like either pollard it or coppice it, it creates a whole bunch of new shoots. So I would check out tree hay, some of the species you can do tree hay with, and also, there seems to be this misconception that you need to buy fodder trees. There are a ton of fodder trees that just grow around you, and I don't exactly know where that came from. You shouldn't have to buy a whole bunch of fodder trees unless you live in a place where there are no trees and you have to plant those trees. Like this oak right here. Super high in tannins. For sheep, this is really good to feed them. You can cut it off at the where it connects into the main branch, cut it off, hang it up, dry it, and then the sheep will love it because it's super high in tannins and it'll help worm the sheep. So there's one example right there. There's a couple oaks all up and down this fence line right here. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I wouldn't worry about buying any tree species. I would just try to look at what you have already around you, and then also maybe grow some varieties in your garden that'll help, you know, give you that. You also had comfrey, I believe you said. Comfrey is another awesome one. You can cut it down, dry it, and then save it up for the hay. Or another alternative is that you could actually put your rabbits in a rabbit tractor, like the Daniel Salatin method, the rabbit tractor, and then just tractor them through your yard. You could do that with the kits and then keep your trio, your breeding stock, up in the elevated cages if you wanted to. So hopefully that helps. Also, the rabbits plus the garden could potentially be a closed loop system where the rabbit poop fertilizes the garden and the garden feeds the rabbits. So hopefully that helps. Thank you so much. This is from Con and Mr. Pointy Ears. I wonder who Mr. Pointy Ears is. Hi, what sort of plants are a good idea to grow actually in a swale? So that's gonna depend. I know, you guys are tired of hearing the classic permaculture answer, but it's gonna depend, and it's gonna depend on where you are. For example, this part of Texas, and by in the swale, I'm assuming you mean in the ditch part of the swale, not on the mound, because the mound is super specific to where you live. But the ditch part is also, well, it's all specific to where you live. The ditch part, if you're in an arid environment, that's where you would plant your trees. You wouldn't plant on the mound. You would plant your trees in the ditch part, so that way they can actually have access to that water sooner. If you live anywhere other than like in a temperate climate or a tropical climate or a subtropical climate or Mediterranean, those examples you would actually plant on the mound. So part of it depends on your climate as far as like where you actually plant your trees on your swales. Also, part of it is going to depend on how much water you can get at one time. Like I would look at your 100-year rain event, or even maybe not even your 100-year rain event, maybe like your 50-year or 10-year rain pattern, and see what's the most common amount of rain that I get all at once, and then let that determine. And then just search up some plants that do well with wet feet. Basically, you want to look at plants that do well in your area with consistent wet feet, and those are plants that you could put in your the ditch part of your swale, or your basin part in your berm and basin, depending on where you are in the planet. So hopefully that helps your question. If you need more specific answers, then shoot me an email, and we can find out some more information and give you more specific answers. And that is open to everybody watching this video. If you need more specific answers than what you're willing to put out, on YouTube comments or be announced in a YouTube video, then just shoot me an email, ThePermacultureConsultant@gmail.com. This is from Colleen Bowman. This may be a stupid question, but is there any value to throwing your herbs into the compost that have been soaked in alcohol for 6 weeks for tincture? Now that's a really good question, and it's going to depend on the quantity of the herbs. If it's just like a few handfuls and you're putting it into like a cubic yard of a compost pile, then I would say there's no problem with that at all. But let's say you're using like a third of your carbon content is going to be coming from these tinctured herbs and stuff, then I would say don't, because the amount of alcohol that's in there could potentially, especially if you're using high proof alcohol to make a tincture, could, set back your compost and slow everything down, or just wipe out the microbes that are actually in there. Good question. That's something I haven't thought of before. This one is from Angelina Funk. I was given a fig tree starter, not sure how old it is, was in a small tree pot. Do I need to take it inside in the winter for the first year? I am in zone 7A. What type of nutrients does it need for good production? When should I plant it in the yard? Thank you for always sharing your wisdom with us all. Thank you so much, Angela. You got a cool name. Okay, so you were given a fig tree starter, not sure how old it is, but it's in a small tree pot. I would keep it inside for now. If at all possible, I would keep it inside now. You could put it outside if you wanted to. It's just with it being in a pot, and I'm not sure where you are, but keeping it in a pot, it's going to keep the roots less protected. So it's going to be more vulnerable to frost and freezing and stuff like that. So for now, I would try to keep it inside in the pot. And then next spring, I would go ahead and plant the fig into the ground. Fig, believe it or not, is one of those trees where it actually does better if you plant it in the beginning of spring as opposed to the fall. Fig doesn't really put down roots in the fall, it puts down roots in the spring. It's just one of those trees. Same thing with like apparently jujube. I just learned this actually at the last Homesteaders meetup in East Texas. It's at Bob Wells Nursery over in, is it Mineola or outside of Pittsburgh, somewhere around there in Texas. The owner of Bob Wells Nursery actually gave us a tour of some of the best trees to plant in this part of Texas. Fig and jujube were two of the trees he was talking about, and he was saying that they both do well, like way better. That typically trees do better if you plant them in the fall, because that's when most of the root growth occurs, except for jujube and fig trees. They do better if you plant them in the early spring. So that's what I would do. That's what I would follow. He's planted way more fig trees than I have, and he seems to be the expert on it. So I would follow that rule of thumb. And yeah, I wouldn't give it any special nutrients necessarily. If you have compost, then maybe lightly dress the top of the pot with the compost. And then just water it with clean water if at all possible. If you have access to pond water that's not like a completely toxin-ridden pond, then do that. If you have rainwater harvested, use that. But yeah, figs are super easy. They will scare the crap out of you the first time they go through winter outside on their own because it looks like they all just died. But first couple of years, it usually does that, and then it just pops right back up until it becomes more established, and then it's more of a permanent fixture in your orchard or garden or whatever your setup is like. Hopefully that helps. This is from John Marsing. Permaculture Q&A. With all the seeds you gathered, are you going to grow them first, then transplant them, or just stick them directly in the ground? So he's referring to the seeds that I collected in a previous video. The thumbnail is nurseries are for chumps. There was a tongue-in-cheek, it was a quote from the video. Some people had a problem with that thumbnail. Sorry, I have a weird sense of humor. Anyway, the seeds that I gathered from those trees, which is black locust, mimosa, and redbud, I'm going to, after they're gone through the stratification and all that stuff, I'm going to put them in pots and get them ready for the spring. And then I'm not going to necessarily sell the seeds unless people are just, you know, if you're seriously wanting the seeds, then hit me up, just shoot me an email, and then maybe we can work something out. But I wasn't planning on selling the seeds necessarily, but I was planning on selling some of the trees that I started in pots from those seeds, because I know a lot of people just don't want to deal with the seed, and with the seed there's a lot lower chance that the plant is actually going to survive, grow, and thrive. Whereas if I already germinated it, if it's already growing, then there's a higher chance that it's actually going to do well in your area or actually keep growing after you get that product. So I just thought it was a better product, and I do plan on selling those. If you do want seeds, email me and we can work something out. So yeah, there's that. I haven't honestly put an entirely too much thought into it. I was going to fill the gaps that I had on the property and then just sell the excess. So yeah, that was my thought on that. So that's it for today's Q&A. If you need a question answered, leave it down below in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you.